So database, I already have two collections in the database, one for shows and one for show lists. I'm going to have another one for users. And then in my connect method, I'm going to do client database show list shows users is database.users. And the main reason I'm doing this is because I want to show you an example of find that's doing something more than retrieving all of the documents in a collection at startup. So this rebuild data, I'm going to go ahead and CLS users drop, and then CLS users is CLS database users. Okay. And then, so this one is making all of the shows. And what I'm going to do here so there's a requirement to have a collection in the database. And there's a requirement in the lab to support logging on, but I was going to do new user, new account creation next week. There is no next week because there's not time. So there's no requirement to actually add an account registration form. So what I'm going to do instead is the rebuild database method is going to add a hard-coded user for this user object. So here in database, I'm going to say user is that, and I'm going to import user. And so this is making a user object, and I'm going to add a toDict method for the user class. And this is just a regular method. So toDict is going to return a dictionary. Username is self.username. And password is, actually it was hash. Hash is self.hash. And then under ID is self.username.lower, which I'm going to call get key. So let me do self.username.lower. And then this is going to return self.getKey. All right, so there's my key, and I can put that in the collection by saying cls.users.insert one user.toDict. So that's going to add one user to the database. And then I'm going to run the rebuild method, which hopefully still works. Okay, so I have a users collection. So let's add a method to find the user. And I'm going to put this after fetch show lists. So let's do class method fetch user, given the username. Whoops. And it's going to connect. And then so there's a find method, and we've just been returning all the documents in the collection like that. But if you want to match only specific documents, what you do is you give it a query in the form of a document, and then you fill in the key values for the things you want to match. So we want to find the document where the username column is equal to username. So username value, and the document matches the username property here. And that will either return a collection with one document or a collection with 0 documents. And then, so I can just basically return that thing. I don't think I need to do anything else. Well, actually I do. So if this thing has a document, then I want to convert it into a user object and return that. So if len, actually, yeah, thinking. Let's convert it into a list. So users is equal to this in list form. And then if len users is 0, return none, else return a new user. And then I want users sub 0 username is the first value, and users 0 hash is the hash value. All right, so now I have a fetch user method in my database. And so for login, I can say user is database.fetch user username. And from database import database. Okay. Now, to really be secure, what I would want to do is not add this in the project. So this rebuild database method probably should not be part of the project because it has all this hard-coded information in it. I would want to move it out of the project and have it as a separate script that I could run to reinitialize the database. But for now, let's just go ahead, run rebuild database, and then rerun web UI. And let's see what happens. So I'm going to log in, internal server error when I don't fill anything in. So let's look at user.getHash. Right. So if user is none, if user is none, return false. So that's what happens if they give you an invalid username. So reload, login failed. So if I hit login, I just get login failed. If I type in a valid username, does the same thing, takes the same amount of time. Okay. And then wrong password. Right password. And I'm logged in.